All right, good morning, everyone. Sorry for the very brief delay. It's 9:03 on May 13th. To officially call this board meeting to order. We'll do just a brief roll call starting, please. Susan Mulligan, District 2. Carly Hoover, District 1.
Edna Morris, District 4.
Dave Larson, District 5.
And welcome to our guests in person and you online as you made it. If you're here online and you're close by and you feel like coming and getting some food, we've got lots of food, so come and eat and hang out and do your input today. All right, so we need to approve the agenda. Actually, so I'll say the motion to approve the agenda.
So
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we have two items for discussion today. And we will just we've got blocked out from 9 to 12. We're just going to take as much time as feels like is needed, particularly depending on how many folks end up showing up. But we've got interim superintendent survey data review and discussion, and then the opportunity for input from community, whoever shows up and would like to provide some. So we, just to provide a little bit of context, as folks know, we are in we will be very shortly in superintendent transition. Our superintendent, Dr. Herndon, is moving on to the EST, which is really exciting. He served here for 5 years, and now we have the opportunity to think about what the next superintendent is going to be like. So we, as a board, have decided to move towards an interim superintendent for 12 months. At least that's kind of the time frame that we've got in our head right now. Of course, as we get the process going for the permanent superintendent, it may take a little longer, a little less time, but we're kind of bookmarking a little bit that year mark to really kind of get us through next school year. And then we'll do a really comprehensive, robust search for a full-time permanent superintendent. So this today is all about the interim superintendent, really trying to think about what is it that we, as a district, really seek in our next interim superintendent. So these survey results, we sent out a survey to all staff, parents, and students. The survey was the same, I believe, for all of them, the survey was the same for all of them, so we're gonna just kind of briefly go through these, and I'm gonna invite folks to also pull up the presentation if you'd like on Board Docs, simply because there's some like open-ended responses that are shared in there. We're not gonna go through each of those individually. We'll probably just kind of look at the kind of grasp of the larger data, and then you can kind of dig into those yourself. I also want to name, we pulled a slideshow together. Debbie and Carrie really spent the time to look through all of the data and really just kind of pull out the themes when it came to those open-ended questions, and then again gave us some graphs to be able to see a snapshot of some of those more multiple choice questions. And I just want the community to know, and everyone to know, that the board can see all of the raw data. So we see everything that folks submitted. So if you're worried that you don't see your response on this PowerPoint, don't worry, we've seen it. We know it's there, and we are certainly taking that into account. This is more just again a snapshot. We couldn't put all 150 staff responses on this PowerPoint, right? Otherwise that would be quite tenuous to get through today.
I thank you to Debbie Aldis.
Also, thank you so much to Debbie Aldis for joining this effort, and for Carrie Martin for really for putting the survey together and compiling all of this. And so thanks so much for the work that's coming to already. Okay, so we're just going to kind of go through these slides again at a little bit of a high level, but this PowerPoint is available on Board Docs if you'd like to look at it. So we had 115 staff responses, and when one of the big questions was what quality should the board prioritize when choosing an interim superintendent? So kind of these were the options: ability to build positive relationships, prioritizing to build a community, a strong community leader, maintaining visibility and accessibility, and then culturally competent. I just want to confirm these are just the responses, not necessarily the order, or is this the order in which they?
This is the order.
This is the order, right? Okay, perfect. So it looks like ability to build positive relationships kind of ended up being, the top, kind of ended up being the top. Prior to our total community, strong communicator. Not super surprised by this, kind of the way it shaped out here. Okay, we'll slide down, and then we can of course stop if there's other questions. Let's just go back. Okay, are there other important qualities or skills that have been around the superintendent that weren't listed? So this is where this was an open-ended question. And.
This is the graph for that.
Oh, for the previous, oh, so she should have work, got it. Okay, sorry, so the graph that you see there on page 5, that correlates with the list on page 3.
Well, page 3 is the other qualities, so this chart is the other qualities that were listed.
Oh,
Is that correct? Hold on, because this does not correspond. to
Okay, I guess so.
the-
Sorry, thanks.
So this is the question, yeah, and this is a basically responses in graph form.
Okay.
So can you, just because the colors are confusing, so the interested in listening and relationship building is the big blue, is that correct? Yes. The 17% is which one?
Miscellaneous.
Okay, 13% is present and available. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
12% is.
Knowledge all curriculum.
Okay, all right, I just might see those colors.
Yeah, I had the same issue. It would have been helpful to have the percentages down below with the items because,
I love the colors,
but there's too many that are close to blue.
yeah.
I'm curious, Carrie, the miscellaneous here, those, I'm assuming when we go back, when we're looking at that raw data, we can see kind of what those miscellaneous things are. Were there any that stuck out specifically?
Well, yeah, and on page 7, they listed some selected responses from miscellaneous. That's a bit of them.
I see, there's page
I
6.
see, okay, got it, perfect, thanks. So for this particular question, it was just to, what for folks who don't pick up the survey, it wasn't a committed question, which is why there are so many varied responses. Whereas the first question about what prioritize, that one was a rating scale. Pre-selected answers. Okay, let's slide down. Again, we could look at every single one of these statements, and we certainly, if folks feel inclined to do that, we can. I'm assuming the board already looked at these generally, and again, some of those. So the second big question was, when you think about the Tukwila School District, what do you see as the district's strengths? And what are you most proud of? Definitely a big theme was diversity. That tends to always come up when we think about the strengths of our district. Students and staff were also a huge theme. I saw students just consistently throughout all of the staff responses, just that our incredible student population.
I love the word. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Let me just scroll down a little bit. This was one of my favorite questions to read the responses to. I think selfishly, it gives us just a lot of cool story, right? A lot of insight into all the amazingness that's happening that might not always come to this room.
Sorry.
Okay, we'll go ahead and slide down to the next question, which is what you think is the most important challenge facing TSD this year, or this next year, excuse me, because again, just really thinking about this 12-month time frame. So these also were some defined answers, and folks had the opportunity to rate them. So here, just to kind of distinguish some of the colors here, that 32%, that's school district culture. The 27% is student and staff social emotional well-being. That 20% is academic achievement, 13% lack of shared vision and practice, and then 5% declining enrollment, being that 3. Which again, just kind of a high level observation is so interesting seeing the same survey go to parents, students, and staff, and particularly seeing how the way that this question's answered between those 3. I think it just shows, everybody's perspective, right, from the place that they sit, and the things that they see. Because I know when we kind of would answer this question, right, the declining enrollment would be a big challenge, right, because that correlates specifically to the district budget. All that, so it's just interesting to see that. Any surprises here on this one?
Did you guys attempt to split this out by the different populations? What the students said?
Yeah, so if you go down, this is just staff, yeah. So
Staff.
this is just staff,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And further, a little bit further down the presentation, you've got student performances and the parent.
Obviously, I didn't have time this one. I was looking.
Hey, so we got 3 hours this morning.
Yeah.
All right, and then some selected open-ended responses down below, but I'm going to go to the next question. So is there anything else you'd like the board directors to know? This is a question I also found really valuable. Folks were really honest and transparent about the things that they thought really might be beneficial as we look forward. And also I just appreciate the acknowledgement in some of the fact that this is a just tough, right? Where we find ourselves right now. So I really appreciate the awareness of that.
I think one of the things that's not very often talked about, and probably most people don't appreciate, is that we're operating the school district within, the wider state, the way the state sets up school systems, which defines most of what courses in particular we get. And we know that schools like ours that have high percentages of free and reduced, DLL, students experiencing homelessness, all that are significantly underfunded. And so that's inherently going to create a lot of friction, because we know, everybody in this district can see that, we need a lot more thing in different areas to support our students, but we're operating in this system that doesn't really support that. So I don't think a lot of people don't really appreciate that, but it makes it it's one of the things that makes it difficult to manage things in this district, because there's always more desire and need for things than we can provide within our current system. So
yeah, and I think we do a pretty fair job of when that comes up here, bringing light to that. But I wonder if there's ways to either raise a board, or we can, I don't know, also even talk about some of those things more, or even here are some of the systemic barriers that we rub up against. Here are some that we feel comfortable pushing back on. Here's some that we can't. Here's some that, I don't know, just to bring more awareness and appreciation perhaps to, and also maybe more of a collaborative approach to how we could, navigate some of the systemic challenges.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think that, when we've been watching on Facebook, especially the thing with Rick Steves and kind of the music department, he needed to know that music is not funded, where our other programs are funded. How do we help the community to know that what is funded and what isn't, is what you're saying. So we just gotta, when those arguments are made, say, okay.
yeah, the legislature is kind of conveniently set up the system so it kind of shoves the school districts on the front line of all that.
Yeah.
But actually what's going on is
Oh, it should
more-
be them that's doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it makes it, the job of a superintendent in a district like ours or any district is a tough job of trade-offs. And
Yeah.
so,
I think I'm still learning a lot of that myself, right? So I appreciate you. Okay, so for family responses that start on page 19. So these are all the same questions, just from a different group of stakeholders. Interestingly enough, almost the exact same number, 4 and 5 is swapped here. But I think no surprise, again, I think the ability to build positive relationships is a big key part in just our small community, our small district, because we are also close and tight knit, right? So that's an important characteristic in this program. So again, any other important qualities and skills in the interim? No graph for this answer, just a few open-ended responses down below. General themes, someone that reflects our community, someone of color. I'm not a racist, hopefully we're gonna. In fact, y'all hold a little bit of that. Okay, and then when you think about the typical school district, what do you see as our strengths and what are you most proud of? Here I see a lot of teachers. So the teachers are really highlighting our students, the parents are really highlighting our teachers. Cool full circle, I think. And I think, and then the student responses will see that same thing, where I think they're highlighting a lot of the teachers. Thank you for also the adding the translation there, Carrie. Okay, and then the most important challenge facing the district. All right, so that big one there, 35% is student social emotional well-being, and then student academic achievement. Again, here, I guess not entirely surprising to think about parents and what their primary focus is. It's their students, right? How their students are doing socially and emotionally, and how their students are doing academically to serve their future. And then we've got number 9% there, 2 different ones: staff social emotional being and lack of shared vision.
And to me, that was kind of interesting about the staff, because I think our staff portrays itself as being very helpful. So that parents may not see that they're really struggling in some aspects, but I thought of that as a compliment to the staff. I don't know if that's true, but. I think too, it would be beneficial to share the information that superintendents are not long-term employees. That 5 years is
Quite a long time.
quite a long time.
Yeah.
The average is 3. Is that what we heard?
I'm not sure. I feel like the average might be between 3 and 5.
Yeah. But, and I think it would be helpful for people to understand this is not a typical issue.
Yeah, I was actually, I know that there was a few comments that I saw come through on the survey, and I was reflecting a little bit on what I'm aware of about kind of the transition of superintendents. And I wonder, there was a time between 5 years or so where there was quite a bit of turnover. And I wonder if there's a little bit of, for lack of a better word, but amnesia, like we're still there almost, when really like 5 years have passed. And I think part of that is COVID, right? COVID happened, which was a total time suck, it took away 2 years. And
Well, and then previously,
Forget about it.
at long-term superintendent.
Yeah.
For long-term. So.
we're almost over a decade, right? And so to go from that to, a short span where there was a lot, and then we did have longevity. 5 years is a good long time. But I recognize that it might be hard to recognize that if we're thinking about that time 5 years ago, and it wasn't. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, a few selected responses. Those have been up already, folks. And then anything else the board would like to know? Oh, yeah, this was one of those limited comments about the superintendent being gone or not being overtaken here. Yeah, all right. I think another, I guess, challenge with that, just to, be transparent, I mean, there has been more turnover within the admin building, right? So even if the superintendent has stayed the same, there's been, which of course still shifts, right? Practice and expectations and all of those things. So I also understand the feeling, that there's still a lot of transition and turnover and change, happening constantly.
And I think it is worth, reflecting a little bit on why, not just superintendent, but the whole administration, central office turnover, because a number of years ago, there was a consultant came in and did a study of this district, and one of the things they commented on was the kind of adversarial attitude and the culture towards central administration. And so I think it's worth, thinking about, how do we, everybody in the organization supports central administration. I know it's kind of easy to throw shots at them. But there's consequences to that.
Yeah.
And it's a trade-off. I
It is
mean,
kind of universal
yeah,
in every district that have.
And organizations in general, and I've worked for enough nonprofits to know too, that there's often this kind of like, frontline staff versus they're getting paid, but I don't think it has to be that way. I mean, just because it's not, but I mean, I think, I think that's one of those things where it's like, everybody talks about the opportunity we have in Tupelo, right, because we're so small, and I think we do have the opportunity to figure out how can we operate in a different way than some of the dysfunction that we either have been in or we see in other systems.
Absolutely.
But
and it does require everybody to kind of get, some of the things with shared vision, it requires everybody to kind of get on board on the same page, and maybe sometimes that's going to mean sometimes sacrificing some of your, things that you think you should go this way, well, in the greater good. So, that I think could, increase longevity in some of those positions, because obviously nobody wants to work in an environment where they're constantly being bombarded.
All right.
yeah, student responses 52. Carrie, do you have a question about this? Did this get sent to primarily high school, middle school? Did it get sent to everyone? Do we know where these responses are concentrated from?
Hey, sorry, I wasn't there earlier. This was middle school, high school.
Those high school, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. Turn it upside down.
Oh, they did. Interesting.
It really was like.
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah, I think the anti-racist work over the years, a lot of that has come from our students over the years. Going back to, we developed the race and equity policy there, and keep going back to that, but it was originally an equity policy, and the students came and said, no, it should be a race and equity policy. And we've heard from them over the years that that's a particularly important area.
And then other qualities and skills of an interim superintendent that were listed.
And once again, that first one is kind of an obvious one, but it also is making sure that everyone knows where our hands are tied, where we don't have all the options that seem obvious.
Great. Okay, and then when you think about TSD, what do we see as the district strengths and things that we're proud of? I also love about this that they're like uplifting each other. And I'm proud of other students.
Yeah.
and the work that they've accomplished. That says something to me about the community that's happening within our schools.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, even if, at least with our students, even if that's not fully translating everywhere else.
Well, and it's nice that they feel like they're being heard without person bouncing around.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what is the most important, or the biggest challenge facing us? They put, so 25% is the student social emotional well-being. I'm not surprised by that one bit. 21% is the school district culture, and then student academic achievement at that 16. And then communication, that's interesting. I'm super curious about that. Communication as a challenge for students, so like what communication are the students not getting that they feel like they deserve and need? I'm really intrigued by that question. I feel like I want to hear more about that.
Well, and I'm such a skeptic. I want to know who's influencing the students in their responses, because we know that as teachers, we have influence. And depending on which students tapped into this, they've often been influenced. And not to say their truth isn't their truth, but it is an influence truth, if you know what I mean. So if this went to a certain set of students in certain classes that have certain, I don't do myself into a hole too deep.
I hear your skepticism.
I would like to not have
Yes,
just stating.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think communication is, it was just really popped into my mind, the stuff that you did, partly related to the bathroom. So, I mean, part of that was, educating about what was going on, and that's the kind of communication I think the students really want to know. Okay, if the decision is made on something, tell me why, is what that's what came to the mind for me. I mean, that's basically just what I was like, treat them like adults, which they are, so.
Yeah, not expecting them to just accept decisions that are made about them, right, that affect them without having understanding the reason.
Because that's almost always in the past, a decision kind of is explained for the most part. Oh, okay. I mean, I refer students that have complained about something. Well, go talk to your principal, and they did, and oh, now I understand. But if you don't communicate, if you don't explain to them why things are done, then of course they're going to say, what's going on? I don't understand.
Which is true of everyone.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
That's it. Treat them like adults.
I think I was surprised at how few staff responses we got.
How many did you anticipate?
I thought at least half of the staff would respond.
Well, there are several responses in here that were along the lines of, all these things are important, and don't ask me to rank them. I mean, it's kind of like when we were talking about, what's the budget priorities. Well, they're kind of all important. And so there was some, if you force people to do 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to get, some of them at the bottom, which doesn't necessarily mean they don't think it's important. It's just.
But they would, if we're talking about total numbers, 100 staff out of 400 staff. That's just lower than we thought we would get.
Oh, that. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about something else. Okay. Do we have 400 staff?
Yeah.
300. Is it 400?
400 employees. Well, nothing. 404.
Okay.
And I think I'm curious as to why more people didn't participate in the survey.
Yeah.
But it's still a much higher percentage than student percent, 52 out of 2,500.
Yeah.
And families, so.
I'd say it could be a variety of things, yeah, could, who knows, who knows. kind of to speak about what you were talking about, Dave, and I know I said this at the special meeting we had the other day, when we were talking about kind of our prayers and what we were thinking about the interim, and but just kind of respond to anyone who was trying to fill out the survey and was like, I don't feel like I can, because they are all important. I think the reason why, ranking them that way, the reality is yes, all of those things and many, many, many more, right, are important and in many ways necessary for a strong leader. And at the same time, we are all human beings that are all constantly, continuously, hopefully getting better, strengthening certain skills. And so, I think it's, we're not looking for perfection here, right? We're looking for the right person, right? That's going to support us in movement. And that might mean that they have a lot more experience and maybe a lot more strength in a certain area. But it doesn't mean that they don't have these other skills. It just means that maybe they have, really strong things to speak to around, these others, and we want to prioritize really leaning into that strength, right? So it's not that they're not all great, and we shouldn't be looking for a leader that holds so many of these things. And also again, just recognizing we're all human, and leaders are also still developing and growing all of the time. So I just want all of these things for that.
Also says to that leader, these are the things that we want you to be able to
Definitely.
focus.
Yeah, to some degree, it's a common, it's a balancing act between, there's a lot of things related to communications, relationships, transparency, listening, all that kind of stuff. And then there's also the other side of what I call kind of the administrative side of running a school district, which is complicated, it involves financial, it involves HR, involves all these different things. And we're looking for somebody that's got kind of the best balance of both of those things, because you need to do all of them. But any individual, my observation over the years is, people are better or worse at one or the others of those. And so anyway, yeah, it's always a balance issue.
Yeah.
Will the applicants be able to see this survey?
The applicants won't, but John Welch at the ESC is,
Well,
and
that's a public document.
so they could, yeah, for sure, they could. We're not sending it to them that way.
I think there's a lot of things that have been insinuated in there that.
For sure, yeah, and I think so much of the amazingness about some of these open-ended responses too is because of the board, the opportunity with that interim superintendent, either as we're interviewing folks or as we are, onboarding that person, we've got all of this rich information to share with that person in a way that, in the time that we feel is right. So before the interview, probably not, but I think it can certainly influence. It is influencing the process for sure.
Yeah, I would expect anybody who is really interested in this position will do research.
Hopefully.
and find these documents.
Yeah.
It's more than just a paycheck. Yeah.
So when I reflect back to kind of what we as the board identified as kind of our core, we narrowed it down to 4 kind of big bucket things. And so I'm just gonna name those, and I want us to think about kind of how those interact with this, and then if we want to shift, I don't know that we'll necessarily have to, but as a reminder, so those things are bargaining, so just kind of speaking to those administrative things that Dave was talking about, bargaining oversight and financial oversight. So really thinking specifically about, I think ideally we'd like someone that knows the ins and outs and has been in the weeds of those things, but is not coming in here to be in the weeds of those things, is coming in here to provide effective oversight of those things. But having done it before, I'm a firm believer that having done it before helps you understand, right? So that then you can empathize with people that are doing it differently. You can actually provide the right type of effective oversight in a different way. So bargaining oversight, financial oversight, those are the 2 kind of big from an admin or district side that we need. And then the other 2 were supporting the current work, right? So we're really thinking about, we are not in this interim time looking for someone that's gonna come in and do a lot of sweep and change. We want someone that's gonna come in and say, great, we're gonna keep moving in the direction we are. Maybe doing a little bit of analysis, right? Digging up, pulling up some rocks, seeing what might be under there, right? And giving the board some great information. So that then when we have our permanent superintendent, they've got just so much information to then be able to move and change if that's the direction we want to go. But we want someone who's gonna come in, keep us going and support the current work that's happening right now. And then lastly, someone that's gonna really support us in culture building, culture strengthening. I originally wrote change, but I think it's probably just more strengthening, right, and building collaborative culture together. And so when I think about that particularly, I really want someone that has had experience doing that. Right, so not just someone who's like jazzed about culture change and culture strengthening, because it's a lot harder work than we might want to think sometimes. I know I want to think it's easier than it is. So someone that like really has experience, being in an organization, in a district, in a place, and really supporting, leading, navigating that.
And that goes right along with continuing the movement,
Yes.
because there is movement to culture change. And yeah, we want to continue that. We don't want to start them.
And it also addresses the whole communications thing. How do you do that? Well, you're transparent, you listen, all that stuff. That everybody lists as one of the top.
We're obviously expecting a lot of this short-term person. And yet we should be.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, yes. I mean, because no matter what, the superintendent job is so much to hold, right? Whether you're coming to do it for a year or you're coming to do it for long term. I do have some interest in figuring out I think it will be easier for someone to come in with like a few goals, right? That they're really needing to, but that's something that we can work on with them, right? As they as they get onboarded and
So when you listed your report, the one we had before, which you didn't, was levy, is that you're including that under? Yeah.
Is that okay? Or do you want this?
It's definitely finance.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's good. I mean, if we don't have a levy, we're in big trouble. So
Yes.
they need to set that one up.
Yes.
That's a big task for them.
And I believe Skip's been asked to have some information available about interested people that might be helping with the levy.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're gonna make some mentions before.
And was in the note.
So when we think about R4 and then compare it kind of to the list, the ranked list from staff, students, and parents. They're all on the same thing, right? But I guess is there maybe something that we want to either add on to one of our 4, add something different, replace, or we're feeling like for the most part they align together.
I kind of feel like there's a gap between the relational expectations and the administrative expectations. In that our survey is telling us that we're someone who's relational and communicates and all of that. And that takes longer to build. And it's a little bit different than oversight of the budget and staff and keeping them rolling. And so I don't know how you do that both. How do you in a year's time get up on what's happening administratively, as well as out in the schools and knowing your staff and supporting your students. I just think that's a lot to ask for someone. Is that not making sense at all?
But a person seeking that position should have those skills.
They should have those skills. I'm just saying, no, that anybody can do. Maybe they can.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, relational by its nature is gonna be a long-term thing, and so to some degree, you know, when people talk about that, and I understand, I completely get why they're talking about it, because it's really important, but I mean, to some degree, they're probably thinking of a longer term thing, maybe. I mean, you certainly don't want to bring in somebody who's going to be is going to blow that up.
No,
So at least don't. And we've had, you know, some people that come in and done that over the years. So just keeping, you know, blowing it up, but yeah, by nature, I mean, good relationships are developed over time, and so, which is one of the reasons why, you know, everybody who comes in here, pretty much, at least anybody who's any good, is gonna spend at least a year kind of listening and understand, trying to figure out what's going on and so forth. Which is why, you know, if we can get an interim. I mean, if you say, okay, we're gonna interim and they're gonna leave, so they spend a year trying to figure it out, and then another person's gonna try to figure it out. Which is why, if it's possible to bring in an interim and have them stay, you've just gained a year of, which is why I would want to leave that possibility open. I mean, a lot of this all depends on who the people are that we get, and we don't always get, you know, I mean, we're not gonna get this probably dream person, but we're gonna get some variation of it, and so. But yeah, I mean, I think for this short term, I mean, we have these kind of short-term administrative things that absolutely need to get done. Bargaining will get done, you know, levy will get done, some resolution of our finance will get done. So to me, it's at least in the short term, that's absolutely required, and then please don't blow up things on the relational side. And if you can, you know, to the degree that people can do that, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying about that's kind of can be too much to ask, develop this wonderful, you know, relational aspects of it, but please don't
I mean,
blow it up.
I think there's a difference between what's stated here as the ability to build positive relationships and someone that we expect to come in and have perfect relationships with everybody by the time. That's not necessarily what we're asking, but I think when I think about the ability to build positive relationships, there are some things that are inherent in someone's ability to build positive relationships, right? They're approachable, they're transparent, they're kind, they're trustworthy, right? So there are some things that are inherent in that. So I'm not saying that like that person needs to come in and know everybody in the district in 12 months, but I'm certainly saying that they need to be someone that is those things, is trustworthy, is approachable, and that when I go and have a conversation, when they go out and have a conversation with someone, they're building rapport, not damaging. Right? So you can build rapport and build relationships slowly. Yes. And at the same time, that can still be a requirement of something we're asking. And I think it has to be, because how else can you find out what's going on if not doing that? And I think to speak to the one thing that you said, I actually think that there could be value. And again, I'm not saying I'm super open. If the right interim person happens to also be the right permanent person, I'm here for that. I'm not going into it with that mindset, but I also think that the interim person can still lift up all the rocks, see all the things, and then give that information back to us and the new superintendent, so that the new superintendent can come in with, here's the assessment that's been done. Now I'm going to go build relationships and work and see that this is true, right? Or do some assistance, so they're not coming in and doing their own learning necessarily, though they will, of course, because
Yeah.
every leader will.
Yeah.
But they've got some starting place to some degree, because someone else has literally come in and that's been part of their role to do, right? To say, here's what's going on.
That would be great if it worked that way. I mean, but again, it all depends on the people.
I'm optimistic.
People, I think it depends on us too, right? We supervise that person, right? So we can set their goals, we can set those expectations, and we can do our best to make sure that can happen. I also think about some of the best CEOs that I've either worked under or worked for. They can do it. They can have organizational oversight and relational oversight. I've seen it, so I know it's possible. And also, we work in a people-centered business. So if you're not people-centered, then do you really have a business being in this role? I'm not sure, right? So this is a people-centered business. It's a student-centered business. It's a staff-centered business, right? And so that has to be the focus with all these other things. So I do think it's possible to hold it all. Hard for sure. That's why it takes someone with a big brain and
Well,
and a big heart. Yeah.
I totally agree with you when you're talking about the ability to build a positive relationship. Yes, we want someone who's kind and relational, and yes. I guess I was more to the survey responses that say we need somebody in our building, we want to know the staff and the students. And that I think is probably beyond an interim, not the kindness, not the.
And I don't know if that's true, because how do you know what's going on if you're not in the building?
Yeah.
I also think about this, all right, we've got a 40-hour work week, but which I probably argue that a superintendent is probably gonna work more, right, than a 40-hour work week, but let's just say we have a 40-hour work week, okay? To spend 2 hours a week in a building. I think that's like minimum of, I don't think that's too much to ask for, right? And so even 2 hours in a building is maintaining visibility of facilities. So it's not about being in every classroom all the time. I think it's just about being present, right? Even just walking through a building. I don't know, I don't think it's too much to ask for. I really don't.
Oh, I don't think anybody could be a superintendent and not walk through buildings.
Yeah.
But they're not gonna hit everybody.
No, I'm not gonna know every step.
And so you're always gonna get somebody saying, well, I didn't see the superintendent, but,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean they weren't there. So, but yeah, absolutely, they have to be out in the buildings.
Yeah.
Particularly in our district, where we only have 5 buildings, so.
Just cover.
Yeah, so, we can actually shift a little bit to, and then we'll kind of circle back, because I know we really want to have these are our kind of finalized things that we're gonna send to John, but of course, John has already actually gotten this PowerPoint, so we see all this already. But I also wanted to follow back up with these are some of the things. But I'd like to switch us to the community listening and input portion of this meeting. So if you are joining us online or in person, we would love your input. And one of the things that I wanted to just kind of frame, I guess this may not be a time based on what I'm online, but I just wanted to frame it in. I love input not on what we don't want, but what we need, right? And so really trying to keep it asset focused. And I also I was reflecting a little bit on just the survey data and thinking about I really see this too as of course we're going to frame our thoughts around what we need based on what has been. And at the same time, it's not necessarily a reflection of, right? So just because we need something now does not necessarily mean that the amazing leadership that we have wasn't right at the time, right? So I just wanted to name that. It's not necessarily one was bad and we're looking for something better, right? It's now we're just at a different time. So I just wanted to name that. And put that out there. So yeah. So if you would like to offer some input, we've been talking around this a while. I just invite you to do that, so you can pop your name in the chat, raise your hand, Debbie will give you the opportunity to unmute yourself. Aaron or Jeff, if either of y'all have any thoughts to share, we'll just kind of open it up a little bit.
Chat is completely open, so they can type their thoughts if you don't want to speak to.
Okay, cool.
In the silence here, I want to offer an apology. It sounded like I was saying the students didn't have good input. And there's no doubt in my mind that we needed student input. And that their input is valuable. My skepticism is old and just pops up and pops out of my mouth.
And I don't think this is probably true at all, but I want to believe that maybe only 115 staff filled it out because the rest of them listened to our meeting and they feel confident about the direction that we're going. That's what I'm gonna go with.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll take it.
Don't tell myself. Just for now.
Well, I hope that, I was hoping it was because they trusted that we've learned and are moving in a direction that they requested, and it's needed. But then I always wonder about those that don't respond.
Absolutely, same.
Yeah.
Well, and I did get a hand filled out one from a staff person that was afraid to submit it. So I don't know if there are others who are afraid to submit theirs. The input was very much in line with what we've heard. And but there was that fear.
Which I think speaks glaringly to the culture strengthening and change that we need, right? There's a lot of that I've heard.
But in talking with people, the comments that I heard also very much in line with what. And sometimes people just need to verbalize it more than fill out a survey.
For sure, I'm not a survey person, I'm not good at putting things in work like that too, so I understand.
So for me, I just need to get out in the buildings to hear what people are really saying.
Are the people on the attendees list different from the people on the left-hand column?
Yes, in the building panels is Deb.
And here,
Oh, here.
so the right-hand side doesn't have different names.
Yeah, the bottom four. Or just.
Okay.
What? What? Nothing, just the closed captioning.
Oh, it came up as
Yeah,
Bible.
it does, it says Bible. Okay, so just putting it out there one more time, we're just leaving some space if there's thoughts, input, questions, pushback. Whatever you might want to offer to our conversation for the district. Here, we're making it on.
And does John Walsh have that list to us again, the 19th?
19th, yep, so we have a meeting scheduled, an executive session scheduled for Thursday, May 19th. Where we will be presented with a list of potential candidates from John Welch.
The 18th.
The 18th, oh, so sorry, Thursday, the 18th,
Yeah,
my bad.
And then
Okay,
the
yeah.
19th will also have election.
And then by the end of the 19th, yeah, there's so much going on right now. By the end of next week, Friday, by 5 p.m. on Friday, we'll know if we have any folks who have put in their name for the board vacancies, and the upcoming election. Lots of things. I don't necessarily want to move on too soon, but also. Feeling like maybe. There's probably not any feedback. Any thoughts? So. You can still offer if something comes to mind, please, as long as until we adjourn, you can jump in anytime. But I think that just kind of brings us back to, do we feel good about, the list of priorities that we developed?
Yes.
I do as well.
Mhm.
What else do we need to do?
Need to eat some food.
That's priority. Good. Do that. Okay, well, I will say that there's continued opportunity to provide input through probably next Thursday. I mean, not to say input, there will be, let me rephrase. Ideally, if you have input to offer, please provide it by next Thursday. There will still be opportunity for continued input as we're doing interviews and those types of things. Because obviously things may come to mind later. So please find a board member. If you've got input, send us an email. If you have input, email Deb, email anyone, it'll get to us, but just email the TSC board. That's probably the easiest way.
Write it down, put it in an envelope.
Yeah, write it down, put it in an envelope, it will get to us, whatever way feels the best for you to get us the input. We wanna, yeah, there's opportunities to do that, and still time.
Can we assure people that the names are not attached to the surveys when they come to us?
There are 0 names, I saw no names, nothing.
Right.
I mean, you know, I think, I'll be really honest, it's still Google Forms, right? So there is still something in there somewhere. However, in no report, none of that identifying information is visible on any report. There's probably only one person who might see that identified information, and they're not. Thank you. Also, retaliation is against our board policies. So.
Mhm. It is. And hopefully when there is.
Okay. Well, then I guess we'll move to adjourn and get out of this beautiful day. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned.
There's a lot of food.